for joining me. I appreciate it. So I think I put the recording on. Yes. All right. So let's start with I don't know if you see the report on Human Rights Watch recommending the travel exemption ban for some of the senior leaders of the Taliban, not to give them the prestige of these like global leaders. How it will impact the Taliban somehow activities and their presence in outside world?
I think we'll limit the Taliban, particularly travel to the Middle East, to Doha at their political office. But I think it'll be limited impact. There are countries, China, Pakistan, several other Middle Eastern countries are eager to negotiate with the Taliban. And the Taliban have proven to be able to get around things like travel bans. If the Taliban, particularly in neighboring countries, like no one really cares about sanctions against the Western sanctions against the Taliban any longer. I just look at the issue of Ukraine, right? Look at how many countries decided to sit out and sanction Russia for its illegal invasion of Ukraine. This seems to be the way things are going in the world. The West is disengaged from Afghanistan. Neighboring countries and regional powers like Russia and China are interested in speaking with the Taliban, and therefore they will make it happen. So it may hurt the Taliban a little bit in places like in Qatar, if the Qataris decide to enforce it, but I don't think it will really damage the Taliban all that much.
So Chinese foreign minister visited Kabul and also met with the Russian envoy in Kabul. So how does overall this meeting impact the regional security in case they decide to increase support to the Taliban?
Yeah, I think that China is signaling. I mean, it's very obvious that China wants to engage and very likely recognize the Taliban. China isn't going to play a security role within Afghanistan. It has its interest in Afghanistan lie in economic, and if the Chinese can extract minerals and get Chinese goods inside of Afghanistan at a minimal price to it, it will do so. But I don't think China is looking to get involved in a quagmire of Afghanistan militarily, but nor does it need to. The Taliban is in firm control on the ground inside Afghanistan. It has no real opposition to it at this moment. The Islamic State is limited in what it can do, and the National Resistance Front is disorganized and largely ineffective, at least at this point in time. China and countries like Russia, they've watched what happened in Afghanistan. They're going to have a transactional relationship with the Taliban more than a regional security interest in Afghanistan.
So the international community has not recognized the Taliban so far because they're accused of human rights, also the terrorism-related concerns which exist. So now China is hosting such a meeting with Pakistan and Russia and neighboring countries on Afghanistan, and would they have bad record of human rights? How it will impact the overall Afghanistan situation?
Yeah, I think meetings with countries, like the fact that China is hosting this conference, China, arguably the biggest violator of human rights, what it's doing to its Uyghur Muslim population inside of China, with millions being sent to re-education / concentration camps. It signals to the Taliban that, you do your thing. It's fine. We're going to do our thing here. You do what works for you inside of Afghanistan. China, Pakistan, countries like this, Iran, are not going to push the Taliban to improve its position on women's rights or school for children, things of this nature. The reality is that the Taliban, these countries will give the Taliban wide berth to do what they want to do, just as long as they're able to get what they want transactionally from the Taliban.
So the last question is how these terrorists, sorry, I missed up a question here. I missed it, sorry. So how Afghanistan militant groups are evolving under the Taliban leadership, because intelligence agencies worldwide, they worried over the Taliban rules in Afghanistan and a lot of radicals reshaping terrorists and other militant groups in South Asia and the region. How they are evolving under the Taliban leadership?
Yeah, the Taliban has a vested interest in the various factions that are allied with it. That think of Al Qaeda, the Islamic Jihad Union, Turkestan Islamic Party, all of the bevy of Pakistani terror groups that are operating, with the exception of the movement of the Taliban in Pakistan, which is still conducting attacks inside Pakistan. It wants to keep all of these groups and keep them under their thumb, at least for the moment. They're making efforts to try to integrate some of these groups, like the Turkestan Islamic Party, and then the Islamic Movement Uzbekistan, Islamic Jihad Union, in order to keep them focused internally in Afghanistan. The Taliban doesn't want problems externally. This does seem that the movement of the Taliban in Pakistan seems to be the exception here, because the group is actively at war inside Pakistan. This is part of that whole wheel of jihad issue, where the Taliban supports the movement of the Taliban in Pakistan, which attacks the Pakistani state. The Pakistani state supports the Afghan Taliban because its interest in maintaining strategic depth are more important than what the Pakistani Taliban does inside of Pakistan. So that it's kind of a unique case there. But the rest of these groups, the Taliban doesn't want to invite, at least in the short term, any type of foreign response as it consolidates its rule. That doesn't mean that it's a good thing what's happening in Afghanistan. These groups now have safe haven. Their leadership can all operate from there. They could use training camps. They're banking on the future. And now, as far as the Islamic State Khorasan province, they're enemies of the Taliban. I think the Taliban has been efficient and ruthless in suppressing the Islamic State Khorasan province. When the Taliban initially took over, you saw attacks almost weekly, significant terror attacks, bombings in Kabul and other major cities, but generally against soft targets, very few against the actual Taliban leadership. These types of attacks decrease. The Islamic State doesn't control any territory within it, within Afghanistan. Again, this isn't a good thing. This just means the Taliban is winning its internecine war between jihadists, but the Taliban remain a threat to the West and to regional countries, including China, by the way. This is the irony in all of this.